here, so it's all good. All right.
I've
Yeah.
got you recording. But yeah, that's fine. Take your time.
All right, let's get going here. Let's see if I can get myself set up. And all right, here we go. Here's good old Postman. So my chat for you guys today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Postman, which is a tool that I use for API testing. And in particular, there is a command line interface for running those tests in a lot of different ways called Newman. And I recently wanted to set up Newman to run in a different way than I had done, typically before. So I wanted to figure this is a great time that I can share with you guys how I did that, what my journey was here, and all this connective tissue between Postman, Newman, and then what the result was, which was called a GitHub Action. So let's get started. If you haven't used Postman before, this is essentially the typical interface. I'm a dark mode person, so apologies if it's just hard to read at all, but hopefully not. What we have here, just to give you some brief Postman recap, some terminology here. We have these folders, which are essentially a collection where you can have all sorts of different API requests that you run. And depending on what you're running, you can choose whether or not you have some logic that occurs before you do that API request or after. So just to get us started, I created something very simple. There is this free API called Ageify Io. And what you can do is send it a name. And then based on that name, it's going to guess how old it thinks the person is. So I don't know exactly where they're getting their data from, but what I have here is a little bit of JavaScript that says we're going to, by default, guess this name Victoria. And my assumption is that Victorias are typically older than 60. So we're going to see if I'm right or wrong here. So that's some of this logic I've set up before the request. And then I'm going to use some of it also to make an assumption and verify that after. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send. All right, let's see. It's saying name guest is missing, but I have name guest right here. It's okay. I'll just override this real quick. So we're just going to force this over to Victoria. So Victoria, this name, the age, it guesses typically Victoria's are 64. So apologies if there's a Victoria present here. But that was my guess, was that it would be older than 60. So I'm going to go over here to tests, and I have a test result here. And I don't know why it's fussing at me that it's not doing this evaluation correctly, but no matter. Essentially what it'll do is it can verify, and I can go ahead and just put in 60 here. We'll run it again. So age is 64, and it was expecting it to be greater than 60. So it's a really simple test. I wanted to figure out a couple of other ways that I could run a test like this or any other tests in the future in different ways. So we're going to step away from Postman here for a second. Oh, there's one other way I want to run this for you, actually. Give me just 1 second. We're going to go back. We're going to put in this name guess. I'm going to put everything back the way it was. Another way that we can do multiple tests for the same, essentially different scenarios, is with a concept called iteration data. So I'm going to go ahead and do what's called run collection. And I have some iteration data I've already made to substitute for both the name and the age. I think it's going to be older than. So Quincy's, I think, are older than 25. If your name is Victory, maybe older than 40. Albert's are older than 30. This is just a little JSON file here that Postman's going to reference. So let's go ahead and I'm going to select my file here. I'm going to go to the session files here. I'm going to go to this iteration data file. Okay. I've got those 3 different scenarios I'm going to run. I'm going to run them all here. And it's saying that for the first name, they're definitely typically at 20. If you're a Quincy, you're typically 24. It sounds like for Victory of 41. And for the Albert 61. So this is just a way that you can run multiple tests at once. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a different way that you can run this outside of this beautiful Postman UI app here. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize these things. Let's take a look at a bat file. Who doesn't like a good old command line file? So what I can do is this iteration file that I have here, plus an export of this little collection folder right here, another JSON file. Just with these two guys, I can do everything that we just did in the UI, but I can do it from the command line. So let me show you what is in this little command line file. It's almost like more me writing words than actually doing the actual code. But Newman is essentially your command line version of Postman. I can tell it I want to run this collection. I want to run it with this iteration data and do essentially the same thing that we just did in the UI, but do it from the command line. So let's go ahead and run this file.
Hey, Jen, maybe it's just me. I can't see the file. I just see all black. I don't know.
Okay, let me go ahead and let me switch it. Let me see if I can get this to switch. Here we go. How about that guy? There we go.
Yes.
Here's the
thank you.
Yeah, a little bit better. Yeah, I'm gonna have to swap around a little more manually, I think, to make sure it shows up for you guys. So thank you. Definitely let me know if it doesn't do it automatically. So my command line file, which is just like run Newman for these two files, will also give me in this beautiful console text all of the same results that we had before, where I have one test where I said, hey, I think it should be greater than 25 years old, but it's only 24. That's our Quincy's, right? The other two passed where I expected, just the same. There's also this beautiful summary table that comes out that'll let you know if you have fails or you have other things that don't work the way you expect, how many of those instances are. So if you have a much more complex series of tests than this very simple set that I'm showing you right now, you could get a lot more detail about what's going on. It'll also summarize what failed at the end over here, which is this assertion error, which is where I said, hey, I think it should be greater than 25. It's not, it's 24. Okay, so that didn't work out. So this guy is unhappy, but the other test passed just fine. So that is my overview of Postman and Newman. So I'm going to show you my third step, which was, why can't I do this on the internet from a repository and have it triggered whenever I want? So I wanted to figure out that piece. So let's go ahead and take a look at good old GitHub. So I have a repository where I've checked in those two files, those two JSON files. And I was like, there's got to be a way if we wanted to say, you know, fire this off either manually, or if you want to show someone a portfolio of testing, I don't know what you might want to do, or if you just are making your own applications or APIs and you want to do some API tests, you want to have that fire off maybe whenever you check something in, something cool like that. You do what's called a Github Action. So I'm going to show you, this is my WWCode sessions repository here. I'm going to go over to Actions. And then I have this run Newman as a GitHub action, which is an actual action here. Now, this action I should show you is based off of a YAML file. So I'm going to show you what is in the YAML file. Okay. This is, again, super simple. They get a lot crazier than this, depending on what you want to do. But I just essentially have the name defined. I have under this on section here, what are the different ways that could be triggered. So I've been messing around because I wanted to do it whenever I make a change to the repository, but I can also have it run on a cron schedule. And you can also allow it to be triggered manually if you want. So I've been messing around with all those options here. So we'll do the manual one in just a little bit. For this the job that we actually want to do, you've got to tell it what the steps are. So I found another repository that had some connectivity to Newman that was already set out. So I've been playing around with this, but I could probably figure out how to do this more manually with actually running Newman and like making sure I do all the different commands manually. But this was just so much easier to set up. So essentially from Anthony VS Code, thank you so much there. I was able to tell it based on where the collection file and that iteration data file are in the repository and a couple of other additional little details, how I'd like it to run. And, you know, do I want it to run with as many details as possible? So let's take a look. Let's see how this is run before. So you go into this actions option, you can see all the different runs. It'll tell you how long it took. And you can click into it and you can see look at this. It looks just like my command line run with all of the different results. It's formatted pretty much just the same. I had some extra details in the command line run that I didn't figure out how to include here, but it's still letting me know everything's running the same. So again, that first assertion is totally wrong. The second two are fine. I've got my summary table and it's letting me know that I was able to do it in about 15 seconds. So we're looking good here. One last thing I'm going to do just to show you guys that this could be a happy path here. I'm going to go ahead and make a change to this iteration data file right here in the repository right now. We all know Quincy's are typically older apparently than 24, right, instead of 25. I'm going to go ahead and change this right here in the repository to 24. Let's commit it right away. And then because I have this action triggered to run whenever there's a commit, it's running again, and we're going to see if we finally make it happy or not. And if not, we can always just edit it again. No, we can just run it here, and there you go. You've got some API testing set up to run in your repository whenever you need it. So that's my demo for you guys, and I'm just I want to see if this works, but you know, if we gotta get moving, that's okay too.
No, you're absolutely fine. Thank you. This is great. It looks like it didn't want to.
It's mad. It's still mad. Ages 24 expect to be greater. Oh, no, I'm going to edit again. We're going to go to 23 then. I want one happy run would be really nice. So let's see. We'll get it. But yeah, it was just a little project adventure recently to see if I could make some things that I've already done in one way work in a different one.
I love it. And I love GitHub Actions. I've definitely used that in a few projects myself for different things, not for this specifically, but for sure for other test runs. Hey, I see a green run.
Hey, yeah. We've got a happy run, the elusive green check mark. So we did it. We did it, everybody. We adjusted our test and everything's looking good.
Very cool.
Oh yeah, Courtney, I am an API enthusiast. So you ping me, hit me up anytime. So this is where I have a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my my session for you guys. So yay, women who code, yay.
Thank you so much, Jen. Does anyone have any questions for Jen right now? Just about Postman or Newman or APIs or testing or anything?
Or anything I showed you at all.
Courtney says, how old does it think I am?
We're about to find out. Come on.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's find out. Come on, Postman. Let's see. All right. I'm going to go to the body. It thinks you're 38. Oh man! Oh, it guessed high. It guessed high. It was a nice attempt there.
At least it was within the same decade.
Yeah, same decade is pretty good. When you're outside of the decades, it kind of hurts a little. It stings just a little bit. But.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and pause. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am a director at Women Who Code in Silicon Valley, and I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about what we're doing over there for our members. We're creating a software project that I wanted to discuss how the positive impact that it's made for our members to work on a full software development product. So we're building a website that will help us manage our Silicon Valley chapter of members. And it will do things like manage our members, schedule tasks, better organize our events, and have a central place for information. So we started by identifying the need to have a tool that we can use to manage the chapter. And we have quite a few members, and we wanted a way to centralize everything. We launched this in July of 2020 when we were in full lockdown and everyone was at home. It was a perfect time to do that, I think. It started with a chapter meetup where we announced it and invited any members that were curious about what we're doing, and just to get some traction and get a feeling for interest. So we discussed what we wanted to build and the tech we wanted to use and the roles that we were looking for. And then we did generate a lot of interest, far more interest than we really had roles for, at least initially. So initially, we took a couple of months to set up our teams, to set up the dev environment, and then hold teaching sessions for the stack that we wanted to use. And now we're up and running. Of course, we're going to be 2 years into developments in July, and I can't believe it's been that long. We're running this as a full software development product. I'm the product manager and a stakeholder for the project. All of the directors in Silicon Valley chapter are also stakeholders. We have a product side that has product managers and UX designers and one project manager. For engineering, we have a front-end team, a back-end team, a QA engineering team, and then each of the teams has 1 to 2 leads. Each team meets weekly in the evening for about 30 minutes. Some will go a little bit longer. Leads are also meeting on a schedule. We have an all leads second Saturday of every month, and this allows us to get together and have important cross-functional discussions that we would not normally be able to discuss. And then following that meeting, there is an all engineering sync up on that same second Saturday. Product and engineering run on sprints. We are on 4 to 6 week sprints. We don't have daily check-ins. We have sprint handoffs. We have retrospectives, and we have demos to stakeholders. We just had our MVP demo that was last week, and it went really well. So our development stack, and we're using GitHub for everything. So for software development, for version control, and for our project boards. And aside from team meetings, we also use Slack for communication. A project uses GitHub for user stories and product board. UX uses Figma primarily. And the front-end stack is React, Docker, Circle CI, and CSS modules. The backend is using Django and DRF with PostgreSQL and Heroku. QA is currently using manual testing. They're writing their test cases and for code coverage and then testing. They're also doing regression testing. They're entering their results on a spreadsheet and filing bugs as they find them. So the takeaway is, this has been a great opportunity for members to work on a full software development product, work in new roles that they haven't before, learn new skills, learn new languages, network, form friendships. Some members have grown as leaders who have come into a lead position without any experience, and we've grown them into leads. We've promoted several people into leads for our chapter. Members have learned valuable skills in leading a team themselves by holding weekly meetings, which are required for the product. They learn to assign work and handle conflicts, all of those things that leads have to learn to do. Many people have attributed their new jobs to the work that they've done on this project. So it would be great at the end of all of this to have an internal product that we can manage our chapter with. But I think most importantly, it's to provide an environment for members to learn, to try something new, and to find new roles out there in the wild. And I can go into more detail if you want, but that's what we've been doing as our internal project.
I love this. Thank you for sharing all of that, Jodi. This is definitely some food for thought, which we'll take and discuss later. We'd love to do something.
Yeah. I don't think there's another chapter that's doing anything like this. And I could see doing this in other projects for, I wish that I could manage more than one product, because I'd love to give more people the opportunity. We have probably 40 people on the team, the product, but there was, there's at least 200 people that were interested.
Wow. And that's, even on, our chapters a much smaller scale, but still, even if there's, for here, it would be like maybe 10 people on the team, on the whole project, but that's still what you said that stood out to me is just people get to work in new roles and learn new skills and work in new languages and network and grow as leaders, which just being a part of Women Who Code definitely does some of that, but this kind of gives you a guided way to do all of those things. And that's
exactly,
I love it. One thing I missed, I was listening and I missed the one thing I wanted to hear. What is the back end? And what?
Yes, Django.
Okay, I just
DRF and what else are they using? PostgreSQL. Yeah, and on Heroku.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. This good stuff for sure. And I mean, even if I'm sure, or if they're not, they should be. Global Women Who Code should probably know that you guys are doing this thing, because this is like a good model, I feel like, for other chapters. So even if like you guys set that blueprint for other chapters, that'd be really nice.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm working towards, is to practice what we've been doing, and then they know what we're doing. They know that we have this team that's working internally, and they can see our work on GitHub.
Well, I was going to say, do you have a link to the GitHub so we can check it out?
I don't have.
I probably can find it.
You can probably find it. Yes, you can, for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome though. I love that you are sharing it with us, because it's really exciting.
It's a good another good way to reach your members.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to jump on the bandwagon of how utterly cool it is that you've got this really great way that folks can collaborate together, and to what, at least to my experience, is very realistic. I've done, I've led sprints and had stand-ups and retrospectives and all that sort of good stuff. So, but I know a lot of folks who are very new to development who haven't done that before, like just the sprint stuff, like just something like that initial collaboration piece can be very intimidating. But if you just do it, you're like, oh, this is like a very normal rhythm, all of it sort of like, comes together, I think. So this is just a great way, I think, to get people started with really working together.
Yeah, it has been. And we try to make it authentic, as real as we can, so that when they go out looking for a job, that they have these skills, they can talk about them, they can show their work.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Definitely. I have a bit of an aside kind of question, just about working in Silicon Valley in general, and I guess how Women Who Code is a very big chapter. We kind of, we're a smaller, of course, chapter here, but I'd love to know about like if the size of your chapter makes it easier to do things like this, or makes it kind of harder, because like you said, 200 people were interested, and I wish we had 200 people interested around here.
I think it definitely makes it easier. I've found that as we've been doing this, like I said, for a year and 9 months, people come and go. So we had a huge amount of interest to begin with. Anybody could fill any role, and we were just learning as we did it. I was not a product manager before. I'm an engineer, so this is new for me. And all of our leads were new. As we have developed at sprint after sprint, people have left, right? Our attrition rate is high, but I think that is good. That is because people are going out and finding work. And that's what Women Who Code is about. If we ever get this up and running, that would be great. But my goal is to give people a place, a safe place to learn. And yeah, so it's been a little harder to find people, and I'm trying to be more creative to fill some roles, because now that we have this velocity, we need people that have a little bit of knowledge in Django if you want to be back end, or React if you want to be front end. We just aren't in a position to teach the entire stack. So we're looking for people that have some experience in the stack. Otherwise, at this point, we spend too much time teaching and instead of trying to get through our sprints. That is something that I've learned. So I'm always, looking, and so we have people from all over the world that find us. I don't know how, but we advertise on our meetup, and I know people come to our Silicon Valley meetups from all over. So we find people from different time zones, and we just work with it.
I love that. So there's people in this project that aren't even in the area then.
Exactly. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It makes it a little more difficult for them because we're West Coast,
right?
And we have our meetings in the evenings. So, we have, every team has a little bit different meeting schedule, but yeah, typically a 5:30 meeting all the way out to 8 p.m. So if you're on East Coast time, that's really a lot to ask. And if you're, in Hong Kong or something, that's really difficult.
Right.
But right now, I don't think we have anyone internationally, unless they're on vacation and they're still trying to check in.
Nice. Well, this is really really good info just for our a chapter, just everyone, how we would love to do something like this. So we definitely hope you don't mind if we reach out.
Oh, for sure. I'll leave my LinkedIn in the chat, and contact me if you have any questions, or just connect with me, all of you. I'd appreciate it.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jodi.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pause just a moment. All right. Okay. My screen back up. Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with yes. All right. Thank you. Sorry, that chat keeps hiding from me. All right. Well, I'm just going to discuss how I found out last year, or I officially was diagnosed with ADHD last year, and how I am just still able to succeed just as a software engineer and just in life in general, having an executive function disorder. So, and I just want to talk a little bit about just how organizing and planning and scheduling and things like that just work for me. I want to say a disclaimer up front that I am not a doctor or a therapist or a medical professional, and I'm definitely not debating whether ADHD is overprescribed or just for kids, or if it's really just laziness or any other trait. I just want to share my diagnosis and how I cope. So I'm definitely not against medication for this type of thing, but I'm currently not medicated. I just want to talk about how I do deal without medication. So for those who don't know me, I do want to say my name is Kara Mansel. I'm one of the directors of Women Who Code Greenville, and I'm a software engineer for bookshop.org. And Bookshop is an online bookstore with a mission to financially support local independent bookstores. So hold on one second. So little background just about where I started. I started after getting a degree in marketing. An undergrad, I started in sales, customer service, and tech support, with nothing related to programming directly at all. I did that for a while, and then I left my job in 2013 and decided I really have this cool new office space in my new house. I want to work from home. This is not the way to decide things, by the way. You should probably find a job first. But anyway, I decided I wanted to work from home. And I decided to just start digging into things I could do from home. And I found this role, not program related, not customer service related or anything, but basically 20 hours a week. It was this online job. I'm not going to get into the details, but all I had to do was get online and like do this thing for 20 hours a week, any 20 hours that I could find in the entire week. I figured out then that I have trouble focusing because I consistently would only hit 5 to 10 hours a week. And that's despite actually needing this income. And it was a decent income for a part-time role, you know, definitely more than just, you know, flipping burgers or something like that. And I just couldn't. I would rather turn on Netflix. I'd rather clean the entire house or do anything but that job for 20 hours. So I figured out then that something must be wrong with me, that I can't focus and you know, just do this one thing. So anyway, moving on, I ended up doing a job. Started working for Apple. And then after I worked for Apple, I went to coding boot camp, and then went for my computer science degree as a second bachelor's degree. And all of that worked well. I consistently got good grades. I did great in boot camp, but sometimes there were things that I needed to like read or watch like 10 times to really grasp the content I was consuming, or I would drift off and go down these rabbit holes that would take me hours to get out of. And it wasn't that the topics were complex or anything. They were, but that it was just because I couldn't focus on one thing. Until the last minute. So I put this on the slide just that I have up. I don't know if Neil deGrasse Tyson actually said this, by the way, but I did like it. What you do plus what you learn from what you did equals who you are. And it definitely does. All the things I've gone through have made me today. So I don't regret any of this, any of the things I went through. So, you know, it's just, a lot of this is hindsight and me realizing a lot of the trouble I've had in the past is all attributed to, a lot of it attributed to this. So these are some really funny, just comics by this cool lady named Danny Donovan, who talks about ADHD and adult attention problems, and just kind of normalizes, you know, making this an understandable disorder and how to cope with it, whether with or without medication, and just that you're not the only one, you're not alone. So these are just fun to read. But related to that, going back to kind of my history, I've always called myself a professional procrastinator. And basically that means, in my mind, I meant I can wait till the last minute to do something, but I'd leave just enough time to deliver like excellent results. I can just figure the right amount of time that I need to do something, and it'll turn out great. But so this is how over the years through middle and high school and college that I would hide that I had trouble focusing. It's just because I couldn't focus to the last minute. But when I did, it was great and I got through it. So I never really knew I had a problem. But this is a really stressful way to live. And last year I got to a breaking point where I had to balance my primary job, and I had a contract job, and I have volunteer roles like Women Who Code, and then home responsibilities. You know, I have 2 kids and you know, a whole family, an external family responsibilities. And so everything started to come crashing down. And I happened to see a friend of mine mention on social media that she was diagnosed with ADHD. And that sent me down a whole rabbit hole of research. And basically every symptom that led to this was something I had. And so something I learned was that ADHD presents itself differently in girls than in boys. And a lot of the behavior I thought was like laziness was my lack of, or my executive like function misbehaving. So I started to see a therapist and talk about my struggles with focus and planning and organization. And ultimately, long story short, I ended up being diagnosed with ADHD, which I had already suspected anyway. So I have been working with her to help me through my struggles. So what I want to talk about specifically related to software engineering is how symptoms that can occur with ADHD how I use those symptoms to kind of help me almost with my job and kind of make it better. Before I switch this slide, I want to just look at this. I don't know if y'all can see my little hand, but look at this chart on the right, and some of the things that are difficult when you have ADHD. One of the things you notice is not as difficult as starting projects. So that means I tend to start lots of tasks and never finish them. So I don't know if anyone here has ADHD or knows somebody with ADHD or has this problem, but this is something that I definitely could identify with. So, and this last one, finishing projects with no external deadlines. This is a problem for someone that's a professional procrastinator, because if you don't give me a deadline, then it may not get done. So, and I'm going to go to the next slide. Oh, wrong thing. There we go. All right. So I, throughout the years, have found ways to cope with the symptoms I've had, and just not realizing that, there's a name for these things. This is just, me and how I cope. So the constant distraction and inattentiveness, I cope with mindfulness and just active listening. So I constantly, when someone's speaking, I constantly try to be in the moment. So if I'm in, not just a stand-up meeting at work, because those are pretty short, but like longer meetings at work that may not directly relate to me, I make sure to take notes. I have to take notes. It's not because I care so much about what they're saying and it may not relate to me, but if I don't take notes, I'm not even going to retain any of the information that you're going through. And so I am constantly taking notes. I do the same thing in Women Who Code meetings. I very much care about what everyone's saying, but I just won't be able to retain the information because, look, squirrel kind of syndrome. So the way I deal with this, like I said, is active listening, mindfulness. I have scheduled distractions. So basically what I mean by that is I know I want to check Slack and I want to see what they're talking about in the random channel at work and in the movies and TV channel. But I also know that if I get distracted, I won't be able to click back into working for like another 30 minutes. And now I've wasted 40 whole minutes, and then I'll do the same thing the next hour. So I schedule time to like turn on Slack and actually read my messages or reply to emails and things like Linear. That's our project management software. I don't check Linear tickets until a certain time of the day, just because I know that I'll get distracted if I get caught up in those little constant notifications. And then I set alarms and reminders for different things that I need to do just in my regular life. So if I know I need to like run to the actual post office or something during the day, I won't do it if I get caught up in like some work thing. So I have to set alarms or reminders just to do that. And this sounds like a basic thing, but this is a high necessity in my life. Another thing that happens with ADHD is people with ADHD, it's basically an executive function deficit disorder. So executive function affects what you decide to do. So planning, when you decide to do it, time management and scheduling, why you decide to do something. So the emotions and the motivations behind the task that you pick, and then self-awareness. So it's where you're aware of what you do and how you feel and what's happening to you. So the way I work on executive function, basically deciding what to do and actually doing it, is I schedule daily important activithis. This is similar to the scheduled distractions, but I mean this a little more granularly. I make daily to-do lists, and these are things on the list that you would normally just do as a software engineer, like make sure to review code or whatever. And I have to put that on the list and I have to check it off when I'm done. And that way I know I'm actually moving through and progressing through, actual tasks in my day. If it's not on the list, in my mind, I think I'm going to remember it, but I'm not going to remember that thing. Like it's going to be very rare that I remember a thing that I've not put on my list. So my daily to-do list, I have them going back from, I think, to the beginning of 2021, I started this. And I looked at them all through last year. And, if I don't check something off every day, I don't beat myself up or anything like that. But I try to get through all of those things. And if I don't finish the things on one day, I'll copy them to the next day. But this really does help me get through and stay on task and see where I am throughout the day. And then I do, just like everyone, I do tend to go down rabbit holes. If I'm doing something in PostgreSQL, for example, and I've never used this particular SQL keyword, I might want to go down that rabbit hole and read those docs. And then somebody wrote a Medium post, but then another Medium post was linked, and I really want to look into that. And oh, look, so I make notes of interesting rabbit holes for later. And I put later in quotes because later might not even come up. I probably don't care that much about that Medium post that was linked, but it's, you got to put, if I put it on the list, at least maybe I'll get to it at some point. And my favorite actual trait of someone with ADHD is hyperfocus and hyperfixation. So this is the ability to focus on complex issues for long blocks of time without any interruption and kind of being oblivious to your surroundings and to time. It allows for deep work. So it really allows me to dig into difficult issues like tricky bugs, or even just like be the one to volunteer for like greenfield projects that just we don't know what tools we're using, and we don't know, what we don't know who's going to work on it, but it helps me dig into things like that. And because I'd rather choose complex tasks, over menial ones. It kind of, it makes me look a little bit better at work. I want to pick the hard stuff. I would rather dig into that because I can get into a mode where I'm able to fully focus on one thing. One thing that I've noticed that gets me into this kind of flow state, I'm not big on a lot of caffeine, but if I have just a little bit, and for me, that's just tea, too much is too much. Too much caffeine is overkill for me. But if I have some tea and if I exercise in the morning and I don't have anything carby before late in the day, I can focus just constantly all day long or late into the night, which is not healthy. So I try not to start things like this late in the day because I will not want to stop to cook dinner and do other things. But hyper focus mode is something that can definitely help software engineers and any creative people in their roles. So that's something I'm kind of grateful for. Didn't know that it was something that was a positive and that was helping me, but I'm really kind of happy that I have that, because I can dig into something and figure it out in a few hours, where it might, take somebody who can't kind of focus that way a little bit longer. So, and at the end here, okay. Or not, there we go. At the end here, I did just want to credit Danny Donovan. This is a really great site and just resource about ADHD, and she makes the coolest comics like the ones earlier. And then Attitude Mag talks about the executive function deficits linked to ADHD, and then just about hyperfocus from WebMD. And then my disclaimer, I'm not definitely not a medical professional. I just wanted to talk about how I am currently coping with my ADHD in my role. So thank you for listening.
These are really great tips with or without ADHD. And I will say my daughter recently gained an ADHD diagnosis. So I've been doing some of the things that you've been talking about, like where you're just trying to set alarms and to-do lists and stuff like that. And we're getting better, but we haven't figured out what that perfect combination is. But I'm also starting to do a lot more of that for myself, and it is very helpful. So I think it's just good tips all around.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say thank you so much. Thank you for welcoming, and also thank you for talking about your experience with ADHD and your diagnosis, because I too was diagnosed last year with ADHD, and everything you said, I relate, I understand. I'm going to have to look up that Danny Donovan person. So thank you for that as well, because I do like memes. And, but yeah, it's kind of like, I feel like, I don't know for you, but for me, when I got my diagnosis, it was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense now.
Exactly.
Now I understand.
That was exactly, it was more of like a breath of fresh air, right? It was like, okay, I'm not the only one. Like, I'm not bad at this, or like lazy is really the biggest thing. I would think I was just lazy. I'm like, but I'm not lazy. I don't think. There's sometimes I can click in and just do this thing. And that's that hyper focus I didn't know about, right?
It's hyper focus, but also like you have like with the emotional, it's that dysfunction part of like, you have to do it, but it's like, there's nothing, like you have to have something behind that, like a timeline or just like a deep need for it. Like, I feel like there has to be a reason for it. So like, if I needed to do my laundry, I'm not going to do my laundry. But if I don't have any clothing, then yeah, I'm super going to focus on doing my laundry. So yeah.
Oh, that's the reason why our clothes pile up in the laundry room. Thanks for
yeah, I definitely feel like it's all about whatever you can do to convince yourself or your ADHD friend, in my case, my daughter. I've got to essentially get the reasoning behind everything, right? It's always like in the moment, it's like, oh, this doesn't matter. It's like, well, let me reframe this in a way that it does matter. And always thinking about things like that, it's like, oh goodness, I know it's a good idea to change your underwear every day for a lot of reasons that are built in, but I have to have, some of these conversations have to be kind of fresh to get all the priorities sorted every day, more constantly, consistently. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I really related to the hyper focusing and tech projects, because I can remember doing that was one of my first things I built for like a week, barely sleeping. But yeah, I mean, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in college, which is like 20 years ago. It was like late in college. And I've actually there weren't as many resources then as there are now. Now there's like a ton of resources. And I've been learning a lot of things recently because the combination of the pandemic and becoming caregiver for my mom with dementia has really kind of like brought it all back up again, kind of stronger, because I was doing a lot of things for years that are, more conducive to someone with ADHD, like entrepreneurial work and stuff. And so I've actually been learning a ton. And one of the things I realized is that I'm a verbal processor, that's one of the things that helps some people with ADHD is talking about things. And I didn't really, as a kid, like it would help me, but I wouldn't know why. And there's also the body doubles, which is one of the reasons why being alone a lot is hard for me. I'm someone who just having other people around, or there's a lot of tools that are getting built around like FocusMate, where you can go online and schedule someone to work with, just to have somebody else there to help you focus.
I need to check that one out, actually. We should definitely look into that one. I something you just said kind of clicked with me, because just bringing it back to like my role in software engineering, the verbal processing. I often we have a very small team. There's 8 software engineers on our team, but I often have to grab one of them and just pair, not because I need help with anything, but because I really need to talk this thing out to a person. I don't mean rubber duck. I don't want to talk to, here's my rubber duck, by the way, it's Taz. I don't know if y'all can see baby Taz, but anyway, that doesn't work. I need to talk to someone and have them talk back at me, and that it clicks. Half the time I'm off of the call in like 3 minutes, but that was very helpful. And I'm glad you said that, because I didn't even relate that. I didn't even realize that was a part of it, but it definitely could be. Thanks for sharing that podcast in the chat too. And FocusMate and Todoist. And Jen, you've shared Todoist before, and I've been meaning to try it. And I definitely should do that soon.
You should. And Pamela gave me a pro user tip, a power user tip, if you will, which is you can do a lot of really great like sub lists and things of filtering with tags. So like I now have a daytime list and a nighttime list. Total game changer. It sounds so like obvious, but just making sure that I know to push certain things off to the end of the day versus trying to do everything at once in the morning. It's been awesome. So you can definitely do a lot of good stuff there.
Nice. And I also
it's helping.
Yeah, definitely.
I want walking through your day like an accident. Yeah. Yep. I also wanted to say thanks for talking about Pomodoro. I used to use, this was back when I was trying to do that part-time job I mentioned that I was supposed to be doing 20 hours a week, and I did like 5 to 10. And I used to use that app, and I'm like, okay, if I set it for 20, 25 minutes, there were little tasks you had to do, and they were 9 minutes each for the task. I can do like, 2 to 3 tasks. Well, inevitably, the problem was that this job involved looking up Google search results. It's a whole different thing that I won't talk about right now. But anyway, I can easily get down a rabbit hole when part of my job is looking up Google search results. So even the Pomodoro didn't work. However, thanks for bringing that back, because that still is really helpful for focusing on other things that don't involve Google searches. So appreciate that. Oh yeah, I actually meant to stop recording, so let me do that.